Hello and welcome back to my video series outlining the M113K swap I've done into my 1986 Mercedes-Benz 560SEC. So in addition to it being an M113K, it also has a WiseTech supercharger on top and also Haltech Elite 2500 ECU engine management. This part of the video series, which I've started, will give you a tour of the engine area this time. Last video I showed briefly was the dyno pull, the dyno tuning that was done on the car, and before that the underbody. So now it's time to do the engine bay. I didn't really want to do the engine bay yet because I still haven't changed the bonnet. The car still has its original bonnet fitted, which has had the insulation pulled off in it. I haven't tidied it up yet, but I have got a brand new bonnet sprayed and sitting there. It's just been sitting there and it's I haven't got around to putting it on yet, and I don't know when I will, so I thought I'd just get the video out about the engine bay anyway. A bit of an update since the last video. Yes, it has been dyno tuned now. I've probably put about 700 kilometers on it, dyno time and road time. Completely trouble-free, really. There's a few things I need to still do to the vehicle. I'm still trying to get external speed set up for the transmission control unit. And my speedo is still a little bit unpredictable, but I've got a few things to try to resolve that. That's the main issues. The other one is, since I've been driving it properly with the rest of the W210 steering rack conversion I've done, it has shown to me that I don't have quite enough steering lock. And that's of course going to be defined now by I can increase the lock by increasing the length of the, whatever you would like to call it, steering bracket, Ackerman bracket or arm, it could be called various things. So they were already custom parts that I made, and I was going to make a new version of them, CNC cut. So I will rectify that. So that's probably one of the bigger things I still need to get right with the vehicle. But for now, we'll run through what's going on in the engine area. Okay, I'll start by just giving a general wide view of the entire engine bay of the vehicle. As you can see, it looks now far from a standard M113K with the WiseTech supercharger or WiseTech engineering kit. It is actually a 3 litre Whipple supercharger, or 2.9 litre from memory. And also dressed up with black rock covers and braided hoses and all these sorts of things. It does have a bit of bling to it. In future, maybe, I'm not sure, I'm having a little bit of regret about doing the hoses in stainless. It looks good, but maybe a black braid, nylon braid would have been better. But anyway, it is what it is now and it looks good, so I'm not going to complain. This is just an general overview of what it looks like. I'll start going into specifics with each component and each part I've modified. So I'll start with the cooling at the front of the vehicle again. As I mentioned previously, the air conditioning system is all pretty much custom now. The only thing that remains original from the W126 is the receiver dryer, which is sitting in its original location there. The AC, it's not a very big one. The AC condenser sits now in the front, and it picks up air,
Not much because the number plate's in the way, but that's it. You can see there, and there is a 8 or 10 inch thermofan on it from memory. So yeah, it is getting enough air through the bottom of the bumper bar. It does work. It is not awesome, the air conditioning, but it's good enough, and yeah, pretty happy with it really, considering the main priority was to get cooling from the to the heat exchanger for the intercooler. So yeah, the air conditioning was a second priority. So so the aircon high pressure lines, high pressure, well, I'll zoom out a bit here, coming out of the compressor. It runs underneath, you're not really going to see it, but yeah, comes into the condenser down there, out of the condenser into the receiver dryer, and then it utilises the standard hose path up through here into the bulkhead or the firewall, and then the return line, the low pressure line, you'll see that insulated there, and running down. This fitting I had to custom make and braze, yeah, to get it adapted to the particular fittings I've used for the air conditioning lines, and back down the low pressure to the compressor mounted down below. Quickly note, you will see a hole there. If people in the know with the W126 know that that's where the reservoir bottle for the wipers, windscreen wipers sits. I haven't got it fitted because I still haven't hooked up anything to this old bonnet, which is going to come off, or hood, bonnet or hood, depending where you are in the world, which is going to come off sooner than later. Yeah, so next up is a custom the heat exchanger for the intercooler system, water air intercooler system. I did retain the factory thermofan on the front, which is about 16 inch, to push air through. It's pretty powerful. It's running full speed now. Obviously the Haltech turns it on and off. So I decided to retain that. And you know, it's a decent size heat exchanger, and that's already, the advantage of that's come up with all the road and dyno testing. You know, even with big pools, it's only gets to 20 degrees above ambient, which is awesome. And it, you know, also the advantage of keeping those intake temps good is then the computer's not going to retard the timing, and still got your power there. So yeah, with regards to this, the heat exchanger intercooler system, so this is the reservoir tank here. It's got a little emergency pressure relief valve on top. I think it's set at 6 psi or something like that. I decided to add that in later to the cap. It's about 8 litres capacity, made out of aluminium, TIG welded up. The water or coolant mix, or whatever you want to call it, is sitting in there. Out of the bottom, trying to get on that bottom fitting there, comes into a Peerberg CWA pump. That's running PWM. It's running various speeds depending on intake air temperature. Coolant comes into the pump. Coolant comes out of the pump down low. Hard to see again under this lower radiator hose. And then comes into the bottom of the heat exchanger. I'll see if we can see it under here. You might not be able to, I'm not sure. Anyway, comes into the bottom, it's a twin pass. Water goes to that side, up the tank, back to this side, and then through this hose, makes its way all the way back. Now this is through 19mm lines here to the back, the entry and exit for the intercooler, which is mounted below the supercharger. And then once it's gone through that under here, comes back through this other 19mm line, into the hose and back into the header tank where it starts the process again. Yeah, so all this, this heat exchanger is all resiliently mounted too, so it won't crack. So that's that part of the system. The next big ticket here is the radiator. I did just go for a off the shelf Mishimoto unit as opposed to the heat exchanger for the intercooler, which was a PWR custom made job. I chose this. So this unit, I believe, is off it's definitely a BMW M3 to suit. I can't remember if it's like an E36 or something. I'm not too familiar with my BMW models. But I did chose it because of its overall width, sat nicely between the supports here. And also it had the inlets and outlets on the right sides. And also those inlets and outlets with the right diameter for the M113 engine. It is smaller in area than the standard W126 radiator, but it is aluminium and it is a triple pass unit, and it is working extremely well. I've driven the car in 40 degrees Celsius days now, and it has no issue at all with temperature, so that's been a real win. It's got a 16-inch thermo fan mounted on the back. This is all a Mishimoto part and unit that bolts directly. I did modify it though. The fan originally sat on this side of the radiator, and I did move it to that side because of the fan on the front here, so I could cover both sides of the radiator. So this is the radiator. Okay, first the expansion line to the expansion tank, factory expansion tank, and with regards to this expansion tank to the hose, returning back to the radiator is here. That is, I did weld this fitting on here. This was not a part of the original Mishimoto unit. What else? So, and the other part of the radiator line is down low there. It's sort of hard to see with what this camera is focusing on. Again, back to the water pump. Water pump. I have got mounted in the top hose here the standard W126 instrument sender unit for water temp. So that's that one. There's not, once again, there's more modifications here to the Mishimoto unit where I decided to mount it. The way I mounted it gave me a bit of room to of where it was going to sit in the end. It does sit further backwards than the W126 radiator. I did that to allow more room for the intercooler heat exchanger, etc. There is, there's plenty of room here still between the engine, so there's no problem there at all. If I forget anything with some of these things, I will come back, but that's about it for that. The radiator system for the engine, or cooling system. Next is I'll go to the engine oil cooler. So the fog lights are out now. It's picking up air through a duct I built inside where the bumper is, and where the fog light used to live. So there's another Mishimoto unit cooler there for the oil, and a small thermo fan on top, once again triggered by oil temperature by the Heltec ECU. And on the other side, same again, identical duct, identical size cooler, no fan on it this time. This is for the transmission oil. I decided I wouldn't really need a fan. It's been fine so far. That's all working well. I'll go back once again. They've got all AN style fittings and braided hoses on there. With regards to the oil here, these are special adapters. You can purchase them from like VRP Speed. I got mine from somewhere else. I'm sorry, I can't remember. If I do remember, I'll post it up or put a link or a comment as where these AN adapter fittings for the oil cooler lines come from. So yeah, this is the regulator housing for the oil. It's a thermostat more or less for the oil temp. Controls the flow of the oil to the oil cooler. Yeah, so all AN, I think these are like -8 lines, or yeah, something like -10, they're quite big. They go down that side. So then the last part of the cooling, I guess, is the steering, which is sort of hard to see. You probably would have seen in the underbody tour, but there is another little cooler that lives up here. There it is there, which is cooling the steering fluid. So that's that. Next I will go on to is the air filter cleaner. So in this car is being engineered, and with regards to our local laws in the state in Australia I'm in, the air filter has to be enclosed. I think it's got something to do with backfiring and potential, you know, for causing a fire or something in the engine bay. I'm not too sure. So I did build an aluminium box. It's been powder coated. It's bolted in here. I might paint it because the finish is not great now. You know, the project's taken quite a while, and it has got rubbed and carried on in different boxes and these sorts of things. So I will do that. But it's getting air through the gap here. When the hood's down, it's still open here. So that's where the original cold air intake for the M117 engine was, but it's still getting air in there, and you can probably just see the filter, which that filter is supplied by WiseTech for their supercharger kit, sitting in that box. So it gets air through there, and then I've got another hole that feeds air also up through that duct. So it's getting plenty of air. Can't remember what diameter the pipe is, but I just got like a 45-degree bend, made a mount for it, welded it on. This was not part of the WiseTech kit. This is all custom. It's got a larger throttle body on it. I think this might be from I don't know if it's from an M156. I can't remember, but it is a larger throttle body than the standard M113K. I think it's 80 something millimeters, 83 millimeters or something like that. Also, I have added some more fittings and bits and pieces on there for EVAP systems and that sort of thing. Yeah, so that's that one. That's another big part of the engine bay. So yeah, over this side I've covered the header tank for the heat exchanger. Covered the standard overflow tank for the radiator. Moving back this way now, the standard fuse box still exists. It's got a whole bunch of different relays and everything living inside it now. I want to tidy it up, paint it. It's not finished yet. Yeah, you know, talking about this at the same time, I did completely strip the wiring harness, the standard wiring harness out, got rid of everything that wasn't needed, and at the same time labeled everything that was needed, integrated it all. If I have some old photos, might try and post them into the video now so you can see what I'm talking about when I had the wires all out and stripped the harness off the old Bosch electronic system and the climate control system and everything that was involved in this car. No issues, everything's working perfectly. I did a good job of that. Next part here is the, I'll just quickly probably show you now the brakes. This is the S55 brake booster. I did decide to run the bigger booster than the W126, obviously, because I've got bigger brakes on. It is a bolt-in fit. Bulkhead wise did require a bit of modification where the clevis attaches to the brake pedal. All my custom lines, you can see here, I did put a bias valve in for the rear brakes. I'm running quite large rear brakes. I was concerned that they might lock up, so I needed to adjust the fluid going to them. I haven't had to do anything yet, it's wide open. I probably haven't tested it hard enough yet, that's why. But the vacuum hose is here, and it runs down through the false firewall and comes back up and picks up vacuum. Obviously from the correct size of the supercharger, is always going to be vacuum there, not boost. So that's that part of the brake system, what you can see in the engine bay. While I'm down here, you can see a couple of the vacuum pods. These are one-way valves, not vacuum pods. The car has got vacuum utilised for various things, like the seat tilting, being a coupe, and the climate control system. It's used to control or aid assist various things inside the car. So all that remained. This here is a reservoir or a multi-outlet for the vacuum. It's got a single pickup, off there, come through the false firewall up here into that, and then the various vacuum loads or requirements, pick up off that manifold. Underneath it is the duo valve for the heater system. It's all sitting in the standard position, but there is a whole bunch of, all the hoses are custom basically for all this sort of stuff. I'll run over that, I'll come back over and run over that. That is the wideband sensors, the O2 sensors for the exhaust for the Heltec. That is the control unit. Sensors are obviously down on the headers. Nothing else out of the ordinary in there. The standard power distribution little block. So that's pretty much all that part, except for I'll cover the heater now. So this is the heater line return from the duo valve. It hooks back around in, and I bent up a new line. This was the best way for me to do it on the W126. The inlet and outlet for the heater core system is all on the back of the engine. Not the case this time around, so I had to make a line that runs. The return is way down here, near where the radiator hose is. So very much different from the M117 engine. On that side of the system at the same time, I did relocate and reuse this is the resistor, I guess you'd call it, for the internal fan blower for the climate control system. That still remains. And I don't think, it's pretty difficult to see the other part of this is the other line that goes to the heater core, back down inside here, hard to see again. All custom, goes down there, up there, behind there. It's all had to be made to fit. And I'll come across here now. I'm running a larger Bosch AGM style battery. It doesn't need an AGM battery. I just decided I'd do that because Bosch make a black one and it looks better in a black car. So yep, and you know, custom terminals, everything was rewired, of course, by myself. Yeah, so that's that. Not much else to say about that. Now, so I mean, I've covered everything now behind the firewall, more or less the firewall and the false firewall. I decided to keep the false firewall. It just looks a bit tidier in my opinion. When the false firewall's not there, you see the sway bar and all sorts of stuff down here. I did look into building a one-piece firewall, false firewall. I did do it and I found it was just too hard to get in and out. So I went back to the factory four-piece false firewall and just re-covered it in this aluminium foil, you know, self-adhesive stuff. Not sure what you'd want to call it that. And also some sound deadening insulation on the back side. So yeah, now probably I could cover obviously on the underbody tour I covered the fuel system. So now from the top, this part of the fuel system, the supply line comes up from down there, and it's really hard to struggle to see. You probably can't show it, not going to see it, but it comes into the fuel rails. I have got there's a Y piece in there. The fuel goes to each fuel rail through that Y piece. One, you know, the right hand side fuel rail is here. Left hand side fuel rail is here. So then the returns for the fuel rails, instead of them being dead-headed or dead-ended, I looped the return. That one there comes back over to an adjustable rising rate regulator. There's the boost or manifold pressure line for that. I'm running about 60 PSI pressure. One thing I've found that when I have my double 044 pumps running, the second one running, it's a staged pump running on RPM and boost. This regulator is not big enough to return all the fuel, and I am getting a little bit of a spike in fuel pressure when the second pump comes in. We've tuned it as per that, but in reality it does need a bigger regulator now. I do have plugged into the regulator a fuel pressure sender that, you know, we read off the Heltec. It's just a Honeywell or a Bosch unit from memory. Yeah, so that's what you can see of the fuel system. Well, in addition, the injectors, it is now running 8 1000cc injectors with the 60 psi base fuel pressure. I think the injector duty was around 80 something percent, 84, 85%. I think I've still got enough in it from memory if I increase the fuel pressure, if I ever wanted to run ethanol E85 or that sort of thing. I've got enough fuel pump, I've got enough line. I think I've just got enough injectors with the 8 1000cc. I don't plan to do that though, but it's good to know that I've got it there. With this sort of thing now, I'll cover it too, all the braided. You can see in the injectors all the braided, the loom there and there. So with the Heltec, I did get supplied what they call a flying loom, which, you know, for every analog input, digital pulsed output, injector, ignition drivers, etc. You know, it has a wire, you know, like it seems like 100 wires coming off of it that you have to cut to length, run your wiring harness, etc. Terminate it, braid it, however you want to finish it. Here's another example of it on the coils. Here. I am still running the twin spark per cylinder. I'm running a single HPI 8 Heltec ignition module. So both spark plugs per cylinder are firing at the same time. There is no wasted spark or anything like that. So I have in each coil a common negative, which or was it the other way around? Sorry, I can't remember. I think I've got two. Sorry, I've got two negatives off the HPI8 and then a common positive for each coil. I could be wrong. I just can't remember at the moment. Put on the spot here. Anyway, that's basically how that part of the system works. But yeah, so every part of the engine. So with regards to the wiring loom or the harness here, that from memory is a cam angle sensor at the front. That's the coolant, the M113 coolant, engine coolant temperature. What else can you see? Oil. Down below there is the, so in the front of the M113K, the M113K never came with any sort of oil pressure sensing. I don't know why they didn't do it, but they didn't do it. So there is a test port on the front of the M113K engine that you can plug an adapter in it. I think it's like M12 by 1.5 or something like that. So I'm running a dual Bosch oil pressure, oil temperature sensor off that, and also the one you can see here is the standard M113, not M113K, it is a standard W126 oil pressure sender unit for the dash. So, my oil gauge on the dash still works perfectly. Yeah, so I don't know, trying to see what else. Can see part of the harness. Not a lot really. Nothing over this side. I mean, all even though they're in these harnesses here, there is existing wiring looms, things like headlights and horn. There's all sorts of things still in there. I basically got all the old tired plastic sheath off there and rebraided it, put all the looms back together. Pretty time consuming, but worth it. It's going to be good for a long time. Okay, I'll move back to the engine. You can see I did get all my rocker covers, cam covers, rocker covers, powder coated black to suit what's going on with the rest of the vehicle. The bypass valve for the supercharger, I am running it. The Haltech is controlling it. He's just doing it on TPS at the moment. So anything when I've got my throttle less than 10%, the bypass valve opens. So basically when you're stopped at the lights or just cruising, coasting, the bypass valve opens and it's not overheating the intake air or the water in the intercooler. And then, as soon as you put your foot back on it, TPS over 10, bypass valve closes, and engine will start making full boost as the load requires. The dyno, okay, so bypass valve working, basically a reverse throttle body. Haltech is controlling it very simply. On a standard M113K, that bypass valve is proportionally controlled by all manner of RPM and boost and all sorts of things. I've got it just very simply controlled off TPS, as I mentioned. The standard map sensor for the M113K is gone, and I just made a little adapter on it to take manifold pressure back to the Haltech. The Haltech's got a built-in map sensor in the ECU, map sensor in the ECU. That's back inside the passenger. That's all mounted in the passenger footwell. Down under here, that copper thing you can just see down there is a earth point. I've gone for like a star earth point for the engine. So, you know, all the coils, etc., are always going to have a good earth. I'll talk about the WiseTech system itself now. So all this blower, the tensioning unit, belt, etc., all comes with it. It all mounts up super easy. I think you have to tap one or two things to get all this unit to mount. I'm running a 62.5mm pulley, which is smaller than what normally comes on the kit. They only recommend using it if you've got long tube headers, which I do. So on the dyno, it's making, it's about 15-16 pound a boost, like dead flat. It comes on super early at like, I don't know, 3,500 RPM or something. It's already making full boost. Yeah, and you know, they've got the adapter up the back for the intake and the throttle body. You know, the kit doesn't come with the throttle body that I've shown previously. You do have to supply your own standard throttle body, or this snout here is adapted for the bigger 83mm. I think the standard throttle body might be 76, correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, and you know, all the supercharger and the manifold, yeah, that's all part of the WiseTech kit. It all bolts in, super good instructions, can't fault it, really. This, I'll go down here now. This, because this was an S55 engine, it had the ABC suspension and all that sort of stuff, and that all works with the power steering, blah, blah, blah. It's now got a power steering reservoir and pump off a E55. I think I might have mentioned that in the underbody tour previously. Work back around. Yeah, you know, everything else, the standard headlights, of course. Euro style. This car was originally a European car. We would have had these headlights in Australia anyway. I digress with the bumper now. Of course, it's a Euro style bumper too. Very much got nothing to do with the engine. Yep. Okay, I'm starting to struggle now and identify anything else that I can show you. If there's anything else anybody wants to know about, yeah, what I've done, there will be things, a million different things that I did do and I've forgotten about, or simply with this video and the way things are here, I just can't show you because, you know, they're buried deep down in what's going on here. But yeah, nothing. You can just see the headers, the ceramic coated headers down here. But yeah, otherwise it's pretty tidy. You know, the engine bays come up pretty tidy. Nothing else to really say about that. Yeah, so I'll call that to a finish because I am obviously struggling to identify anything else that I can tell you of interest with it. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Okay, back again, and at the start of the video, in the introduction, I did mention I'd done somewhere around 700 kilometers now. When I said that I was going to give an update on what the car is like to drive, I forgot to do it. I'll do it now. So yeah, it's got a lot of power. It's probably putting out something like 700 horsepower. Crank horsepower, and it's making over 600 Newton meters at the wheels from as little as 3,500 RPM, which is coinciding with about the stall speed of the converter. So in the lower gears, even with the 275 Pilot Sports I've got on the back, it does want to just get them turning if you put your foot into it. So yeah, pedal management is key.
but it's actually quite Jekyll and Hyde, the vehicle in general, because if you're not got your foot mashed into it, it's driving amazingly. I can't fault it so far. Even with the steering, rack and pinion steering conversion I've done, completely rebuilt the suspension, put it all back together. I have still not done a wheel alignment, and it drives straight as an arrow, which I find quite incredible. Maybe it was more luck, or maybe it was the attention to detail I put into it. I'm not too sure. But yeah, it's a little loud. I think I need to quieten it down a little bit more with some more silencing in the exhaust. But other than that, it's quite happy just to lumber around and cruise around, and there's no issue there. But if you want to get on it, it's definitely there. So it's been a pleasure to drive so far. Even with the issue, I can't quite run it properly in full automatic mode. I do at the moment still drive it around on the paddles more, which, because I haven't spent any time tuning the TCU yet, because it still needs an external speed input, which I haven't resolved. But at the moment, driving it with the paddles is good too, because you can hold the gears as long as you want to. That part of the system's all working excellently. I do think a part of it is this, the W126 chassis was, ahead of its time, and it's a great platform, and it's not like, it is a 40-year-old car, or nearly 40-year-old car, the technology of the chassis, but at the same time I have upgraded modernized certain parts of it, and I also replaced everything, and it hasn't got 35-year-old bushes or anything in it. It is everything's brand new, shocks, springs, bushes. So there's nothing to fault with the ride control. The ride comfort is all top notch. And then, so with that W126 chassis and the more modern EFI engine, it's just a awesome combo. 5-speed transmission is amazing compared to the 722.3 that is in these standard with the M117 engine with the second gear start. To me it did feel a little sluggish, but with this 7226 transmission, the 5-speed, the ability to first gear start, all these things, it just completely livens the vehicle up. So I'll hopefully post some videos with some footage inside the car driving along, so you can see what's going on there. And then I'll also do a tour of the rest of the car on the outside, future plans, where it's at, car outside, car inside. Here's a little sneak peek at the interior of the car and everything going on in there. So it's a bit hard. I've got the camera the wrong way around at the moment, but I'll do a proper view of that later, because when I first got the car, I did completely redo the interior to what I wanted to do with it. So I'll get some more videos out eventually when I get time in the future. I hope you've enjoyed this one and what I've done with the vehicle. And stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.